Welcome to Education Dialogue, Manish Ji.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me
Thank you
here.
so much for your time and joining this so. बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद.
Thank you.
कैसे हैं आप?
मैं बढ़िया हूँ.
So today we'll be talking about the alternative education movement that you are leading, and of course, like around that, how education system is changing and should change in the future. But then, like to begin with, could you please like briefly talk about the Ecoversity Alliance that you have and the recent Asia gathering organized in Nepal?
Sure. So the Ecoversities Alliance was started about 10 years ago, and it's a network of alternative universities around the world. Its mission is to help reimagine higher education. It's right now we have more than 500 members in 50 countries, and it's a range of different kinds of initiatives and focus areas. So some are working around entrepreneurship, new models of entrepreneurship, and local economy, rebuilding local economies. Some are working around spirituality and bringing more spirituality into our daily lives and bringing values and spiritual values into economy, the way we think about our connection to nature. Again, some are working around arts and culture and regenerating arts and culture again in society. So there are many different kinds of models. The idea is when we think about university, if we were to interview 1,000 random people, they would have the same image. What does a university look like? They'll show a big building. Maybe it'll have some kind of vines creeping on the building, or it would be very high-tech glass building nowadays with a lot of high-speed Wi-Fi. But we're saying something a little bit different, that universities can be very different kinds of spaces. What if the river is a university? We have so many different traditions of learning all over the world. How do we bring those traditions alive again? Because these were or what if silence is the core practice of the university? Like we have these like Vipassana. Vipassana is a ecoversity movement also within there. It's a whole space to bring silence, to center ourselves. So all of these are there. The problem with all of it is the mainstream university has called them extracurricular activities. And if I go back and think of my own life, all of these different kinds of spaces and possibilities have opened up so many rich things within me. They've influenced how I see the world. They've influenced the way I do things in the world. So how do we bring those things again alive and recenter them, prioritize them? So right now the whole priority of the conventional system is you read a book, take an exam. But what if our intelligence is not just limited to our heads? What if our bodies have an intelligence, our heart has an intelligence, the rest of nature has an intelligence? So just as much as we might read a book, we need to know how to read the forest, or we need to read to understand, things like where is my food coming from? Most educated people have no idea where their food is coming from. They can name 100 brands, but they can't recognize 100 plants today. So we are, the Ecoversities is responding that we are in a deep crisis on the planet, a climate crisis, gap between rich and poor, so many crises around water and our food systems, so many things that we need to really find new approaches to. Many experts, they can tell us what is the problem, but how to solve it is a whole different game and needs a different kind of approach, different muscles, different skill sets that modern universities are not teaching us right now. So that's the idea of Ecoversity, is that rather than wait for the modern university to change, there's a deep crisis, even all over the West. Many leading intellectuals realize the university is not suited to what's needed for our times. Very difficult to get it to move and change. So, but they keep having conferences. but they don't know how to actually do something different. So we're showing the way that there are many small experiments happening. I'm particularly, my own personal interest is the system is very good at failing people. Maybe the biggest thing it produces is failures. So in India, at least, I think 80% children are labeled failure at some point, and that is a huge amount of loss, talent, loss of people's humanity happens in that. And you can imagine when people go around introducing them, so I'm 8th class fail, 10th class fail, 12th class fail, what it does to their self-esteem, what to their possibility.
12वीं फेल करता
Huh?
एक मूवी भी है 12th फेल तो एक
12th,
मूवी भी
yeah.
है
So how do we just, what options, the universities don't have any options for these people also. So we are, in our university at least that we've created in India, we take people who have failed, because we don't feel the child is ever a failure. It's a system that has failed them. And so this is a fundamental shift. We don't want to blame the learner. We want to say that we need diverse kinds of systems. And we want also systems that are not putting people in massive debt. So higher education all over the world is becoming more and more expensive. People have to take more and more loans. It's almost $100,000 a year to study in the US. It's a huge amount of money to take on for a young person. So can we create better models on many different fronts? That's what the Ecoversities is about. We had a fantastic gathering of about 50 educators in Nepal just last week, and on the river Trishuli, a beautiful Ecoversity was born there, which I've been running, but was really made official, called the Riverversity. And a person there, Ram Silvai, is doing fantastic work to help young people, people of all ages, leaders, young people, reconnect to nature, reconnect to the river, to the forest, to themselves. And I think this is what the spirit of Ecoversities, that we cannot have a model that keeps disconnecting us from nature. When we disconnect from nature, we disconnect from ourselves. So the spirit is, eco means home. So when in Ecoversity, so how do we find our way home? What is our right relationship with home, the planet home? These are some of the questions that we're asking in this alliance. And in the gathering, we did many things. We supported, many people are starting their Ecoversities. As you're doing this, a very difficult thing to run an Ecoversity, to start it. On one hand, it looks very easy, but when you get into it, then there's challenges we all face with anything you do, any kind of startup. So we give a lot of mentorship, support. We are also thinking about how do we overcome our own limiting beliefs and start to see what we can do together to build this movement. So this was some of the things that we talked about there when we were in the gathering.
Great. So why do you think that this existing university system has failed to address these challenges?
Mm-hmm. So I think the university was there. I went to Harvard, and what people who go to the university, we're trained to be managers. We're not trained to be leaders, because leaders will be connected to place, context. They'll try to see things more holistically. So I think the first challenge is an epistemological or knowledge challenge to the university, is it created these separate disciplines. And since, when I was in UNESCO almost 26, 27 years ago, we were publishing papers then about transdisciplinarity. These knowledge categories, fragmented ways of thinking, are not sufficient to face these challenges, because any challenge, let's say climate, there's a political dimension, there's an economic dimension, there's an environmental dimension, there's a spiritual dimension. And so we have to think more holistically about these complex challenges. And this fragmented way of thinking that the university is embedded in doesn't allow us to do that. The other thing is that there's a lot of fear that is being cultivated in us. See, I would say we are more fearful. We have more fear than our grandparents. because our grandparents had more skills. They knew how to grow food, they know how to build houses, they how to make the clothes. So the basic needs, they actually knew how to do. We don't know how to do. The university is never cultivated. There's a crisis actually, because the modern university is based on the Western concept of leisure, that you learn while you're in leisure. So you sit around, you have time to read. Our traditions in Asia were that doing things and learning by doing. This is the way to do. If you're working, even if you're taking care of a baby, you're learning. If you are, building a house, that's the way to learn about something. So the doing aspect was very important. The model that says that you read a book. So I like to ask people, how many books do I have to read to learn swimming? Can you tell me this? Tell me how many books.
No, I didn't read
It's
any
impossible.
book.
So we learn about something conceptually, but we don't actually know how to do the things. And when you get into the how to do things, it's a whole different set of knowledges that you need. And so this idea that, both fragmented and disembodied ways of knowing is what got us in this mess. And so we need these models to shift in ways that open up, like, why don't we think it's, we've created our own hierarchy. The person who reads more books is more superior than the person who knows how to build a house. So how do we shift this? Because once we do that, we see we have so many knowledge holders, so many rich people in our community.
So, but then, like many universities around the world claim that they are holistic in nature now. They offer interdisciplinary problem-solving, holistic education, and also talk about. I mean, the second question is: are there like any issues or domains which require these kind of complex like system or formal system, or can this what do you call learning by doing, philosophy? Be applied to learn like medicine or everything. So is there any distinction between among these like different fields based on the complexity and all, or you are claiming that everything can be learned through this new approach?
Through this approach, you get better learners, because if we see the problems that we're facing today, they are complex and they're adaptive, and there's a lot of uncertainty with them. So it needs a continuous learning mindset. And each context we work in, so if you're working in Nepal, Kathmandu is very different than the rural areas, right? And even within Kathmandu, there are different kinds of neighborhoods. Tamil is very different than maybe where you live. And so each of them is a different model. It requires a different way of engagement. So I think that sensitivity to place is very important. And that's because universities have a tendency to abstract knowledge.
Yeah.
Right? And we
top
forget.
Down.
And then it comes top down again, right? And then there's a term we use a lot, warm data. So the university is working with cold data. Mm-hmm. Information that's taken there, and you have a report in front of you. It might be, even the latest report is old already. So warm data is the kind of understanding that we need to have relationships, living relationships. So in a lot of our models, we're encouraging people, you need to have on-the-ground relationship. As a leader, I cannot rely on a written report. Right?
Yeah.
People generally have an interest to lie in when they're giving data, collecting data too. So I need to be able to call people on the ground and say, okay, tell me what the real situation is. Tell me so this is a very different paradigm. Then it's relationship, it's trust. Will they tell me what's really happening? Like during COVID, what was happening on a national level reporting is very different than what's happening on the ground. And then once you understand the ground, then you'll find better approaches to deal with what's on the ground. So I think there's still a lot of movement. And the other thing is I'm saying that the university, the biggest challenge for any university, whether it's an Ecoversity or a conventional university, is how to remove fear from the children.
Yeah.
there's a lot of fear, anxiety
Yeah,
that
I know.
young people are
I
facing.
agree.
So whatever models we have to do is it has to help them uh, remove that fear, anxiety, to engage with what's present in a different way. A lot of the fear is around money. So I said what's the most talked about subject in the university? Financial package.
Absolutely.
Nobody's worried about what are they learning. They're like, what's the package? You see it even in
What kind of
IIT.
job can I get
Yeah.
after
Yeah,
graduations,
yeah.
right?
And you
Well,
see,
what will
even
be
in
the
India,
thing?
the IITs,
Yeah,
people
IITs.
are studying, let's say, microbiology, or they're trying to, and all of a sudden, what are you doing? Oh, I got a coding job. Coding. Like they spend their 4 years studying something, and where's the package? It's in coding. So they just shift over like that. So that is where people's mind is, because there's such a fear of money, anxiety around money. And I think we need to shift the conversation to seva, service. What is a challenge? So with all of our learners, we try to help them figure out what is their mission. So one of my young people will say, I want to serve people healthy millets to heal their bodies, to regenerate the farmers' livelihoods, to create. That's a mission a young person is walking with. Another young person, I want to bring back a lot of the native species which have been lost and regenerate the forests. Another person saying, I want to help people heal themselves within so they can build trusting relationships again. These are life missions. Beautiful. One guy is saying to me, I want to convert this entire region into organic. So every single person who lives in this community, regardless of their rich or poor, they can afford to eat organic and healthy food. This is the kind of missions young people need to connect
So
to.
let's get back to the very, very basic question. So
Yeah.
according to you, what is the fundamental purpose of education?
So current model, there's two. What should it be and what is it? So what it is to design to make us hate ourselves and to disconnect ourselves from the rest of nature. Because you see, at least in India, I'll tell you, 50 years ago, you went to places, villages, nobody will sell their land. Land was not a commodity. Nobody will say, anything happen, we're not giving our land. Land is part of our family. As soon as the educated mind became there, land became a commodity. And you can see, I can show you all over the country where the educated youth, they get to 8th or 10th or 12th, they become part of land mafia. They're starting to sell the land. Even the teachers
That is
who
the
come
most
from
lucrative job these
it's the
days.
most land mafia. You don't have to work much. You just do this. So, and teachers in India are also part of land mafia. They go to village. They know the urban guy. They're making the business deals.
No surprise.
So I think this disconnect from land, love. I talk about my grandmother a lot, because when she talked about family, she included the mountains, she included the river, and so when we love and we have relationship, we'll protect the things. But the modern education system doesn't want us to love ourselves, doesn't want to know us to know ourselves. You can think how many in the university, who am I? Why am I here? Is not even a topic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Knowing yourself, being confident, then you have to go into depression, then you have to do this, and then you start to slowly, find yourself. But it's very
pathological.
pathological, exactly. So I think the purpose is that. That's why the British set it up. That's why before the Prussians, modern education came out of Prussia, which was really to create a group of people who were managers, who didn't love. But what education should be is it has to start with helping us to know ourselves and our place, our relationship to place. We cannot exist without a healthy relationship with nature. And
But then we have completely
we've
forgotten
totally
that.
forgotten that, right?
We are after the package.
That's it. So and we have to understand the larger economy. So it's an extractionist military economy, what I call deadlyhoods economy. It's destroying the planet. So we're filling our bank accounts, but we're destroying the planet. How long can we live like that? It's not feasible. So we have to come back to The big word now, you must have heard the word sustainability. Sustainability is old. It's outdated. Sustainability is sustain existing. We have to regenerate. Regenerative, that's the whole thinking. All of the things that have been lost have to be rebuilt now. So that's where young people have to focus, is all on regenerative kinds of activities. And there's a lot of, actually, you can make money also doing those things. It's not that there isn't. But we need to think about that in terms of our missions. Personal mission, I want to regenerate water. I want to regenerate the forest. I want to regenerate community life again.
So is it due to the kind of economic system we are adopting, or kind of education system we are
so it's
following?
It's both. It's it's like the chicken and egg, which came from economy or education. But the education modern has been shaped it's well documented by the industrial factory system. If you see, the design of a factory sweatshop, it looks a lot like a school. Or we say the same people who had designed the education system also designed the military system, the factory system, and the prison system. And if you can go around and look at all of these systems, and more or less the same design was used for that.
Absolutely.
Gandhiji is very interesting. Gandhiji called these systems Shaitani.
Satanic.
Yeah, satanic.
Right.
And I read that, I said, how is he calling it
satanic?
These Western systems, he questioned the whole idea of Western civilization. So I thought, any system, what does he mean? Any system that disconnects us from our inner voice, from our intuition, from our deepest consciousness, if it's trying to disconnect and replace with some authority, it becomes satanic. We have to learn how to listen to our own inner compass, inner voice. And that's what education is not teaching. The entire Guru Shishya Parampara was to connect you to yourself, to be able to serve the life.
But was that not also top-down? The Guru knows everything and Sishyas are taught what Guru thinks?
So I think that's the modernist approach.
Does that really allow the Sishyas to flourish or grow on their own? I have not much, don't have much idea about this Guru Shishya system, but then
so what I think is, if we can go through it, it's a very good thing to understand, because what's happened is the schooled mind tried to interpret what it is. So we see it as top-down, but it's not top-down at all. The Shishya is choosing the Guru.
Oh, okay.
They
had the liberty of
They had the liberty of choosing, and we do it. We can see it with our spiritual gurus. So we don't go to the knowledge or skill guru, but the spiritual side, everybody's still all over.
But they used to have a limited number of gurus to choose from.
But guru was never limited to human. River could be guru, mountain could be guru. Even today in India, many places you go to sacred sites are the guru, right? So I think we've reduced the definition of that to fit, because what historically they've tried to do is saying Guru Shishya came into school. This was a smooth transition, but this was a violent philosophical rupture that happened. Right? So this is what we have to understand. So I'm not saying that we have to copy the Guru Shishya,
right.
But there's a lot of principles there that we can bring in pedagogically and try to understand. And that's what we're trying to do in India with a lot of the Ecoversities, is how to bring that.
So I think we have to critically evaluate, maybe allowing the freedom to the individuals, because education has to be liberating, not restrictive, right? I totally agree, because our education system has been very, very limiting and restrictive, not allowing that creativity or imagination to flourish, right?
Yes.
So I also hate that, actually.
Right. And
it has to be emancipating, right?
We are not, if the education does not give us the confidence in our own selves and our own culture, if it's making us feel like we are second rate all the time, the white European American system is better, then we are going to be lost forever, because we're always trying to catch them and they keep changing the rules, the parameters, so we're always going to be second.
But then, unfortunately, what I believe is, of course, like every society has its own, like culture system and all. But unfortunately, I don't know who is the culprit. But then we have just like forgotten to believe in ourselves, appreciating our like own stuffs, and following whatever like the modern society
yeah.
does. Then that I think like we have to really, as you have been using the word reclaim,
Yes.
reclaim that belief in ourselves, our society, our nature, mother nature, and everything. I totally agree with that. So maybe like let me take you back in time. So how and why you started this movement, and when
Yes.
also.
Yeah. So well, it started when I was a child that I never liked going to school.
Really?
Yes, I actually liked doing a lot of things.
Okay.
So I started my first business when I was 10 years old. I started doing community service activities when I was 12, 13 years old. I started, organizing lots of events with my friends when I was a teenager. So many things I like to do. So, and maybe I couldn't see, people would all say, whatever I'm studying, how is it relevant to the world? And the teacher would always say, when you get older, you'll understand. Otherwise, so they had no answer for it now. And then
The time will come
the
later.
time will come later when you'll understand it. That time has never come for
Absolutely.
me.
Our teachers also used to and say the same stuff like today also.
And so this connection to being part of the world and serving in the world and helping people has been with me since a child. And the more I grew up, the more I realized those were the very transformative experiences that shaped me, that gave me confidence. So you can never get confidence really. I tell you this, and the second thing I would say is, which is related, so people who went to the best universities, all of them, even if they have double or triple PhD, they lack confidence. Why? There's an inner critic. Oh, you're not. Because you just see, there's a difference of like, it goes back to the swimming. Like, I can write a book about swimming, but I don't know how to swim. So somebody someday will catch me. So most of the time, they don't know how to practically.
I can write how to run a business, but then I myself can't run a business.
So I met so many MBA faculty who never ran a business themselves. They're writing books about it. So eventually, someone will catch them. So that fear is in their mind. Somebody will catch me that I don't really know. I'm not.
Interesting.
Right? So I saw this also, and then many of the people who were experts, the more you get to know them, the more you're like wondering, why should I listen to these people? Better to go and listen to the person on the ground who knows the realities, who has more experience. But the other thing is that I started seeing that there's a very deep, so the big decision makers, they knew the problems, but they couldn't shift it. So one starts to then see that there's a need for different approaches, and this is where this comes. And I started seeing that, many people who don't have degrees have a tremendous amount of wisdom.
Yeah, of course, I totally agree.
So why don't we value them? It's very simple.
Because they don't have a degree.
Just because they don't have a degree. My grandmother didn't have a degree.
They have not attended Harvard.
Yes. So I think that we can democratize this more.
Absolutely.
We can bring these people into the spaces of learning. If we can, I meet vice chancellors. I'm saying, if you can respect my grandmother, then we can build a new model.
So you did your PhD with your grandma, right?
My PhD with my grandmother. Unlearning. So many of the fears, anxieties, beliefs, she helped me to remove. So in our traditions, a lot of this, again, it's more of the education rather than putting in, is actually
letting
we
go.
have a whole tradition of letting go, which we have to also bring back. And that's why all these Western people are coming to our countries, basically to let go. They hold on to things too tight, so we teach them to let go.
They take in so much in their country, and they come over here to let those
Let
things
go,
go.
let go of it.
Right?
So that is a big part of the learning
Interesting.
paradigm, which we have mastered all over South Asia. We know these things of letting go to get to the essence. So I think people in the West, my experience is they overcomplicate. Educated people make it think more and more and more complication. But to come back to simplicity is a very big part of the unlearning process.
But then again, like one more time, so how and why and when you started this movement?
So the other thing is when I was in UNESCO, this is 26 years, I was a part of a team called Learning Without Frontiers. So this was a special unit that was assembled with leading thinkers around the world. And I was a young person at that time, helping to lead this team, and then interfacing with many people who are really doing the work of reimagining education. They had a lot of ideas, and from across disciplines, cognitive science to anthropology to management. And we were meeting these leaders, and they were all saying, every single one recognized the way the school is designed is part of the problem. The way our mind is being trained to think is a big part of the problem. And so what I realized though at that time is UNESCO, World Bank, all these bodies, they don't want to really change the system.
Why?
Because it's a huge business. It's a huge, you're very comfortable. You have a position, in the system, and to change means then you're it's like, if you're in the government,
right?
If you don't raise any question, just be quiet and follow along, nobody will bother you.
Absolutely.
As soon as you stand up and start saying it, everybody attacks you.
Absolutely.
So this is the same thing in the UN system like that. So I started raising a lot of questions. People were challenging that, and I said, why are we afraid to build the new systems? And then I realized how racist these systems are. They want us to always stay behind them, right? And so how do we leapfrog? How do we bring our own new energies? The global, I really believe today the global South has to lead the way. The global North has created a big mess on the planet. They don't know how to solve. It's the global South, it's the indigenous peoples, it's the farmers, it's the artisans, it's the grandmothers. We have to find a way. It's our monks. We have to find a way to solve the problem. So this is where, so I was in UNESCO, and it was very clear we have to change it. So then I thought, sitting in UN, can I change it better, or going to the grassroots and working with people? So I felt that going to the grassroots, being with the people who know how to build new systems on the ground, let's find those people, let's start building those together. So that's been the journey.
So you were born in India but raised in the US, right?
Yes.
And educated in the US.
Yes. So I stopped believing in the American dream. Started seeing it's a nightmare for the planet. Like I had one professor at Brown when I was there. They said, you know how when the American economy goes down, what's the best thing to do? Start a war. Yeah. And he had tracked over the last 200 years, every time the economy started going down, America started a war.
Really?
Yeah, and they have the mastery. They make money from the arms industry, all of that. After they bomb you, they make money. They send in the construction industry. And there's a great book, which really, when I read it, I was like, whoa, I have experienced and seen this all. It was called Confessions of an Economic Hitman. And in that, they're saying how they conspire to put us in debt. Because once you're in debt, then, today in India, Nepal, pretty much most countries of the world, without Ministry of Finance, nothing moves. And World Bank, IMF control ministry, they cannot even, our governments cannot lift one finger without their approval. So we're trapped in this game now. And if the leaders, don't listen to this pressure, if they try to resist, then they say they call in the jackals, which is a CIA. Come, and there's a whole now documented history of how people, assassinations and things happen, with the leaders don't lead it. So we have to come out of this thing. This is still a system. All of our wealth is being extracted and sent abroad to the West to support the Western lifestyle. So we have to become a model for our own people. And we have to have our own grassroots leaders. This whole development game that has been going on has been about brain drain. It's taking our best young people and sending them, Indians, Nepalis, Chinese, they built America.
They took or we sent them?
Well, they took, they took, I think. But they're the ones who did all the dirty work to build these countries. But we can develop, we need to have a model that is not export oriented, but is actually building our own leaders for our country who are dedicated to doing it. This is what we need.
So what can we learn from the Western education system?
We can learn first what not to do. Yeah, what not to do is not to make education so expensive that the student is in debt. What not to do is to create a bubble and make it into just classroom based. What if we start to see the whole world as our classroom? And there are people I know in the West who are now experimenting with these models. It's not that it's a black and white thing, but there are people there that they're part of Ecoversities. There are a lot of experiments that are happening to reconnect young people to farming and food again systems. There are some projects in the West which are really getting back to skills and bringing that as part of higher education.
Getting back to the nature.
Getting back to nature.
Getting
Huge movement.
Back to the indigenous.
They call it rewilding. Rewilding, which getting back to the nature. So I think these are the very positive things which we are sharing with people in the West.
But then I think we have learned really well from them to make our education really inaccessible and expensive.
Yes, so we are.
Look at India, look at Nepal. So education has become a commodity, commercialized so much, made it very, very inaccessible and unaffordable for the commoners.
Yes. But I think what we have to, this Ecoversities, what we're fundamentally asking is, what is education? And that has many parallel questions. What do we mean by success in life? What do we mean by happiness? What do we mean by progress? What is development, real development? All of these questions are right now, because for the last 50 years, we assumed this was set. Yeah. But these are now being rediscussed, reopened around the world. And then if you have these questions, then it gives a different idea of what education should be. So I think it's a very exciting time we're in right now, because so many things are being opened up in terms of reimagining how we want to build our societies.
So one personal question, so did your degree from Harvard and experience with USAID, UNESCO, World Bank help to disseminate this movement or to take this movement forward? Because people listen to you just because you have that, degree. I think yesterday only, one gentleman said that he came to listen to you because he saw Harvard University in your profile.
Yeah. So I think in terms of, I was given a gift as in my 20s, which was to be in the highest places of power. Would people consider power? Even Wall Street, I was on Wall Street. Yeah. So I saw the thing from the inside. So definitely when I speak and when I share the critique of what's wrong with these systems, it always, because obviously somebody who's not been in writing is a different thing.
Absolutely. Again, the same thing as we discussed earlier. You've not been there, but then you're not, describing about the stuff.
Yes, so having gone in it, in terms of critiquing, yes, it has a value because I know how it works. In terms of building the new systems, my grandmother has more value to understand. How do the things work on the grassroots level? How do you work with people? How do we get those skills? Because from my grandmother, I started learning organic farming again. I heard one story that she helped build a house, so I started learning eco-architecture again. So many experiments, because what those institutions teach you, and we have to understand, they teach us to see the world through Excel and PowerPoint. And we start to think this is reality. This Excel PowerPoint is not reality. Reality is a three-dimensional sensory experience.
That's a fake reality.
This is a fake reality, but we start thinking, and these reshape our mind. So I had to come out of that. So I know how to deal with people in that system. I know how to talk their language. I know how to pull them in this direction. So that helps. But how to work on the grassroots, that requires a whole different kind of thing. And that's what we need today. We need young people. We need educators who know how to do the work on the grassroots. That's how we can build a new system.
Absolutely. I totally, that's mind-blowing. So yeah, of course, like people, I'm sure like people would love to listen to your story of not sending your daughter to the school. So how did you take that risk?
Yeah.
How has the experience been, and what has her like learning journey?
So I think that again, having children is one of the greatest gifts of life. Unfortunately, I was just yesterday talking to another young person, Nepali young person, who said, "Oh, I don't know if I should have children. My wife and I are discussing whether we." I said, "This is all nonsense. It's one of the greatest experiences and gifts, and the children are our best gurus."
Yeah.
Right? So anybody who's a parent actually understands this. Problem is in the school system, you outsource your children.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So what we did once I started with this decision, I thought, let us do it. I mean, I wasn't very confident what's going to happen. I didn't know, but I said, let's start this path. All I knew is the gift I wanted to give to my child was I want my daughter to be around creative, passionate people. And I didn't find any teachers like that. I mean, one teacher I found out of 100, 200 that I had in my life was very passionate about something. Rest are just doing their own thing, their dull job. So I said, and my mother is in US still. So she kept saying, you send her here, I'll send her to best American school. I said, it's the same thing. The teachers are not passionate. So let my child be with passionate people. You know, whether they're artists or farmers or creative people or scientists, they should be passionate. So that was the core decision, that life is a great gift, a beautiful, precious thing. We have, and so many people, I hate, one of the words I hate the most, time pass. Time pass kar rahe. It's like, why are there so many things to learn and do in the life? Why are you doing time pass, And every educated guy is like, time pass, acha time pass ho raha. So I think that experience, what we did because of my daughter, we started building a whole community, an ecosystem around that of people that, for her, but also for us. I would also like to be around passionate people. It's such a deep learning process to be around that. So that has been the great gift, is because of her. There's a saying, it takes a village to raise a child. But it says, I flipped that and I said, it takes our child to help us raise villages again. We are growing up as this, one of the most stupid things that we did is to buy this nuclear family model. The nuclear family is so much pressure, so much anxiety, so our joint family model, maybe we can keep evolving. We don't have to keep, like I'm at one project in Australia, 18 families living together.
18?
They got a big apartment building, they all have that, but they're living together as a community, as an extended joint family. So we can be more imaginative, but living together means more, this, one of the biggest gaps that's happening is intergenerational learning. Yeah, absolutely. So you think in the city, Kathmandu or Delhi, how many spaces where children, adults can mix up and play together, and we're losing.
There is a mobile.
Yes.
True friend for the children.
Yeah.
And true friend for the
no
humans.
And you even think now, Pele, like weddings used to be 5 days, 10 days.
Exactly.
Now it's 1 day, go, come
Quick.
back, and quick. And even in the wedding, children are separate. So this is very unhealthy. So we need to create the spaces. So because my daughter, we were to able, it's so funny. So many of her friends are my friends.
Yeah.
So many of my friends are her friends. this is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I can
You know,
imagine.
and she never had when I was growing up, I had all the time, oh, are there other kids my age there? Then only I'll participate. She never had that. She always thinks somebody is 20 years older, okay, I can be friend with this person. And we realize this later on. You know, you and I will have mentors, friends who are older now. We'll go and sit and have coffee with them. But
And with also like in a very young,
yes,
person.
young person you can have. But when you're growing up, you're like, be only with your age, be only with your age. And this is very unhealthy.
Same class, right?
And this is to destroy wisdom. Wisdom, you need to have many different perspectives. So if you're creating a consumer market economy, you don't want wisdom. You don't want people to question, do I really need to buy an extra pair of shoes? Do I need this? That's what wisdom will start questioning, you know, or what's giving me real happiness.
Absolutely.
So I think with her, she has been my guru actually in this process. And so many ideas I had about education also, which I had read, you know, whether it's Dewey or whether it's, you know, Vygotsky or whether, you know, all these things. She's helped me break so many of that and see learning in many new ways because of the way she's learning and how she's engaging with the world. The biggest thing I had to unlearn, which was I also, because of going to Harvard, one of the curses is you compare all the time. Oh, he's ahead of me. He's behind me. He's ahead of me. He's doing better. And you're not being happy with yourself.
Right.
So with her, I've seen she's quite happy with, and she's
You
taught
don't
me
need to
stop comparing.
You don't need to compete with your classmates.
You don't need to compete all the time, you know. Because it's why. So I love to tell people we have not come to this earth to compete against each other. We've come to complete each other. So what is it to mean that our friendship? I help you become even more beautiful. You help me become more beautiful, flowering.
Absolutely.
This is the mindset. But schooling makes us compete, compare. Oh, he's getting you know, in India there's always, what is Sharmaji's kids doing? What is Sharmaji's kids? And you're not able to appreciate what you have. You're not able to see how do I contribute. So it's a sickness. It's a sickness.
The same in Nepal as well. So yeah, of course.
So I think that she's helped me come out of that. I stopped comparing. I said, each person is a beautiful thing. Let me see them and see how I can complete each other. How can we be together in a relationship?
So did you ever ask her if she wanted to go to school?
We did ask her. We took her to, like, you know, you take the children to zoo to see animals. So we took her to school. She saw a school. She said, you mean I have to sit there the whole day? I can't. I said, yeah, you have to just sit there. And then she said, do I have to ask permission to go? She said, to go to toilet, I have to ask permission. I said, yeah, that's how ridiculous the system is. We can't listen to our body. We have to ask them permission to go to toilet. Even if teacher says no, then we have to sit with the...
Yeah, of course. One of the students, one of my students told me while he was at the school, his headmaster used to count how many times he went to the washroom.
Yeah.
If it is too much, he would not allow him to go to loo.
Yes. And then she said, then one of her friends in our neighborhood, her friend was 2 classes ahead of her. So her friend kept pressuring her, you should go to school. You should. Mm-hmm. So she said, I want to go to school. I said, okay. But let me tell you, you won't be in the same class as Neha. She's like, no, I'm just going to spend time with her there. I said, no, they won't allow you. And she said, no, I'm not interested to go there. So a lot of times, and she sees the school, before when she was a teenager, people would try to tell her you should go to school. Then as she got older, more and more of her friends said, oh, you're so lucky you don't have to go to school. You don't have to take an exam like this. And what I'm a big believer in, this might sound very crude, is I believe in child labor. Not hazardous labor, exploiting.
But engaging the children.
But engaging in real world things. So when Kanku was like 6 years old, she got interested in animals. So we took her. She was volunteering in an animal shelter. She was seeing everything. She's seeing how they do operation. So just being around, taking care of dogs, seeing how the cows are there. She was very interested. Then she was interested in beauty parlor. So then she went and spent time, helped them there. Then she got interested in art. So then art gallery. Then she was interested in cooking. She went to cafe and worked there. Then she was interested for some time also when she was growing up, and she had a lot of friends in the sabji mandi. So she would sit there, play, watch how they're doing all the things. And then she would travel a lot. We would go to tribal villages, we would go abroad. So she's had and I'll tell you, the one, my mother she's a doctor, so she has been struggling all the time to understand this. But the one time she got very upset, very, very upset, is because we have one project in the jail university. So some of the inmates who had committed very bad crimes became my friends. When they were released, they came to meet us and they met Kanku. So my mother was very afraid. And I said, no, this is compassion. I want her to learn compassion. People make mistakes in life. They have to be responsible. But we have to also forgive. We have to give them second chance. If she learns this value, it's a very big thing in life. And then she learned and she became friends. Then she would tell my mother, oh, I met Gopal, or I met, this person. And then when my mother came, she introduced. And that also opened my mother's mind again, that, okay, we can forgive the people. We can't, something different within us. So we talk a lot about compassion. Dalai Lama is talking, but can we practice it in our daily lives? So my daughter has taught me a lot about that also, as much as Dalai Lama, I can say.
Yeah, great. I think like our schools are teaching everything but life skills, life, right? So life knowledge, life wisdom, whatsoever.
And you're into entrepreneurship too. I think by 6th, 7th class, children should start experimenting. They can start little things. We do a lot of things with students also in this 6th to 12th age. So they're helping them find their passion. So I set up an unschooling center in a government school in Delhi. 4 hours a day, students come, they can find their passion, they work on entrepreneurship projects, they go also for seva. So what I think in our model we have to do with people working on entrepreneurship is to also have students experience seva. So then it balances, then they find the right path forward.
You can learn all these soft skills. But what about these hard skills, domain-specific skills like engineering, right, or technology, or physics, or maths, without being into the formal education system?
No, so
what has your experience been, and what your alternative model?
I think that the model is to understand how the world is. So everything starts with an understanding of what changes are happening in the world, what are the challenges in the world, what do we see for the future. This is where we're coming. I think most educators don't have a view of the future. They're never invited to think about it. Whatever they're doing is for the past, because whatever their experience is the conditioned mind which is operating. But I would say, if we see, you can just do a small survey with any 10 professionals. Ask them, how much did you learn in your formal study and how much have you learned on the job? So majority of people will say 80-90% we learned on the job of how to do the things. So yes, some background is needed. What's now happening is that background doesn't need to take 15-20 years. You can do that background in 3 months, 6 months, prepare somebody, and they enter, and the work should teach you. So that my model is that the life and the work should teach you the things more than the theoretical thing, because you'll understand things much better when you're doing them, right? And so this is the model that learn some basic thing, that's fine, but the most thing we have to learn is how to continue to research, right? So one of our friends who was in the gathering just now here, he runs a beautiful center called Vigyan Ashram, Center for Basic Engineering, Rural Tech. So idea is that IIT does not prepare the person to come back to their village or their community to develop technological solutions to solve the problem.
They will go after packages.
They go after package abroad, right? So, but we need people who can come and solve the farmer's problem, solve the construction problem, whatever the thing is. So they have basic course for that. But their course starts with some basic thing, but then gets it into the real problems. You start working on the real thing, then you understand.
Right.
So I think this even, The best of the conventional
More
experiments,
hands-on, more experiential, rather than like mugging
just
up the
theoretical.
theories. So you first play with the problems, then
Yes.
start
Then you
reflecting,
get it, and then the
and then
questions will come from you.
problems will come. Then you will have a mentor to learn, and
Exactly.
there are a lot of open sources as
Yes,
well to
yes.
learn that.
So
right?
I would say right now the
The other
model
way
that
around.
we have been, the conventional model is 95% theory, and if you're lucky, you get that 5% of
5%.
experience. If you're lucky, you have to be very lucky.
Otherwise, you have to complete the entire course and go to the
Yeah,
work
right.
to have that feel, right?
Yeah. So what I'm saying, we have to flip it.
Absolutely.
90% should be experiential. And then whenever theories you are learning, it'll make more sense.
On top of that, it's a continuous process of
It's a
learning
continuous-
and excelling,
Exactly.
right?
This is what we have to prepare. This idea that
Absolutely.
I've become educated as it's something complete, we have to, that model is shattered. There's so many changes we have to keep learning and growing. So this mental model has to shift, and it starts with the educators saying that I myself have to keep learning. If the teacher is not open to that, you see it right now with the whole AI debate. Right? The teachers are resisting learning. And so this friend I was saying, Vigyan Ashram, they're saying one of the programs is with the AI, and they're saying we have to learn how to ask better questions, how those searches, how we can do this. So that's a whole shift. Rather than getting the answers, you have to think how to get better questions. So this is a whole paradigm shift which is happening, and hopefully the teachers will welcome this and start to see how do I use my hands, how do I value experiential more, how do even when I work with teachers, I said, what are you passionate about yourself? Find that first.
Nothing. That's why I'm here.
That's why I'm here. Yes.
So we are almost towards the end.
Yes. The beginning of
beginning of
we are hopefully wanting to work with you and many beautiful friends on Ecoversities of Nepal.
We are also in the process of creating alternative models in education. We are also sick and tired of this system. But then maybe quickly, do you think this new model, alternative model, will complement to the existing system, or it will have to replace it entirely? So
it depends on the
people. If you are
people.
given the power to change, would you really scrap all these
It's a lot of
systems and
work.
create new models? Or
So let me ask you, some people tell me, well, school system is so big, spread out, we should work with it. So I said, which is bigger, school system or nature system?
nature system.
Why aren't our educators working with nature system, right? So what I've found, unfortunately, is there's a lot of inertia, there's a lot of laziness, there's a lot of business as usual, there's a lot of money to keep the existing. So it's very difficult to make that shift. That's why I'm saying I went to highest level in UNESCO. I was training ministers of education. And what was so disheartening, they don't want to change the system. They're asking me in Paris, where do we change the system? They're saying, where's the best shopping? That's what they want to know. They don't want to know how to change the system. So this is the situation. Or they know, even there's certain parties in India where they said we're anti-corruption, there's that. First thing they did was build school buildings, which has the most corruption in it. The most money is from construction work, right? So I am most willing to work with people in the system, but I'm not waiting for them. We're not going to wait till they get, because what I'm saying, Gandhiji said 100 years ago. I'm not saying, Tagore said 100 years ago. Tagore was more influential than I. And he created his alternative, Shanti Niketan.
Absolutely.
And he created so beautiful. Today it's still part of our consciousness. So we need few beautiful new models to show, because people have to experience it. They have to see it. Because even I see a lot of people who are talking, we need this, they reproduce the same system, because unless you come out and experience. So we need ultimately to have this partnership of people in the system and people doing radical experiments outside. What my work, I think your work is, can we build a platform where they can exchange? share, inspire each other, support each other, then we can do something great for our
I love
places.
that word called alliance
Yes.
because you are doing something, you may be doing something, she may be doing something, I may be doing something. If we can come together, learn from each other,
Yes.
and work for that large goal, I think that's the way
That's
forward.
the way forward. And that's what we need is the people who can build the
Absolutely.
bridges, bring
Many
together.
beautiful people are doing really beautiful, stuffs and
Yes.
initiatives all over in Nepal, in the region, in the world. So if we
Yeah.
can come together, learn from each other, help
Yes.
each other, support each other, inspire each other, that would be
That's the
absolutely
way forward.
fantastic.
That's the way.
Very briefly, what did your daily schedule look like at Swaraj University?
Yes, at Swaraj. So I should say there's different campuses of Swaraj. So again, we're trying to understand each learner's needs. Different. So we have one campus in the jail, which is trying to reimagine the entire prison, helping learners connect to themselves and their purpose. So that schedule is 12 o'clock to 5 o'clock. So anything we do with institutions, I said I need at least 4 hours a day. Sometimes they say, oh, we'll give you 1 hour a week. I said, no, that's not a serious commitment. 4 hours a day with the learners, we can do miracles. So we're doing that there. We have another campus which is called the Swaraj Farmversity, which is working with youth to rebuild the local farm economy and get organic farming in an entire block of Rajasthan. And so that meets every day morning. They do, we use the word koji,
Right.
seeker.
Yeah.
So that's very different than the modern education model thinks of
Imposing
there's
versus,
empty.
right.
Yes, coming from inside.
to,
In intrinsic motivation
Absolutely.
is what we're trying to tap into. So there's a morning meeting, there's some centering, grounding activities, and then there's many things. People are doing some collective projects, then they have their own individual projects they're working on. We have a lot of effort where people go to mentors and they're working with different mentors on things. There's learning journeys that are happening where we go meet the people who are already very inspiring and doing things to open up our sense of possibility. There's time where we build in for silence and being with silence. There's a lot of cooking together. So there's a lot of kinds of things. But I think the other thing, I'll just share one thing, invited all over the world to talk about, is unlearning. So I think as educators, if you want to be in the game, you have to have an unlearning strategy too, because most of the blocks are within, right? And so one of the things is we have many pedagogies we've developed around unlearning. So one is become very famous. It's called the cycle yatra. Okay. So 1 week on bicycle, traveling to villages. There's no money anybody has. No technology, no phone, no camera, nothing. No medicine with you, no food with you, and no plan.
Just wander.
You wander, go as a group, you go to a village, meet the people, work with them, stay with them, whoever you meet. Very spontaneous. So a lot of people get so tied to a plan.
Yeah, of course.
So this is an unraveling of that. Right. Just learn to be more in the flow. And then the fear of money. When you remove money, and I did these experiments myself before I shared them. When you're able to connect to all kind of new things.
Yeah, you are bound to.
You have to, and you think what's happened. I don't remember if you remember in your childhood. And when I was going to India during my childhood, wedding would be the whole community comes. Some people are cooking,
and then, the same thing.
And then people are staying in each other's house.
Absolutely.
Now money has come.
Right.
Then you have the caterer coming. Then you have the wedding planner coming. Then everyone wants separate hotel room. So that community bond and feeling is getting lost. So we have many different kind of unlearning projects we do. This is the main thing. So in our philosophy, it's called self-designed learning. One is to understand yourself. One is to work on real-world experiential projects. One is to unlearn those blocks within you. Biggest one being around fear of money, which blocks us from imagining, from connecting. And so once and if you know how to connect to other forms of wealth, then you get all the. Why can I think of, I'm getting introduced these days to billionaires. They love this idea. They love this kind of vision, right? Because everyone who knows the system knows what's happening inside.
Can you
It's
also
rotten. I'll connect you
put
also.
me in touch with
Of
those
course.
billionaires?
So the first thing I tell them, you have to believe this. I tell them I'm the wealthiest person in the world because I'm connected to the gift culture. I'm connected to so much love, compassion, so much people who are doing things. So then, because they don't want to be around poor people. They want to be around wealthy. So you have to believe you're wealthy also. And you tell them, and look at all these beautiful projects that are, and we don't have, to build what you built and what the whole Ecoversities, Nepal or India, it'll take thousands and thousands of crores. I said, we already have it running. And we're doing it better. You put 1,000 crores in your model, our model will still be much better because people are working with passion.
Absolutely.
So I think this is the idea, is that if we tell a better, the story, and we have to work together. So it's not just Kingscollege, it's 100 campuses. You already have to believe, I have 100 campuses in Nepal running, functioning with amazing, passionate people. People will want to support that.
Great. What is the most challenging stuff like to take it forward and to run it?
I think today is actually, it's not the financial resources, not the challenge. It's finding the people who want to have passion, who want to dedicate. Because it's not, I find these days, again, people are like, oh, I'll try this for 6 months or 1 year. People I work with, you have to commit at least 5 to 10 years. Then we build something. So this kind of commitment and passion is somehow different than it was 20 years, 30 years ago. You could find more people who are willing to. People are a little bit, I find, urban people in the shopping. I'll try this, I'll go there, try this, but not wanting to really commit. So I find that's a challenge. That's our biggest challenge in this movement.
So
finding those people.
Are you also working with the government and the industries?
Government, we are talking with the government. Again, individuals. So the point is that there's like MLAs, MPs who understand this vision and the need for it. So in their own constituencies, they're trying to support. Industry, I am in touch with a lot of CEOs. Because they know there's a big crisis. They can see the shift of attitude of workforce of young people. And they really believe in this kind of things. They are ready to support. And this is where, if we want to build our ecoversities, the way we did, like in Swaraj University, I have more than 1,000 companies and NGOs which are ready to hire my people. Because they know we're getting more skilled, passionate, dedicated people. Everybody wants that. So if you can say, I'm going to give you this, the CEOs will be willing to do it because they see what they're getting from universities, which is not very good talent these days. So I think they're a driver. Key driver in this movement is the industry leaders, and we have to engage them more.
So what are the, let's say, like 3 things that you suggest the existing university system or education system can integrate based on these philosophies, approaches within the existing formal system?
So I would say the first thing is to encourage gap year. So it's very interesting. Princeton, Yale, Harvard, they put a circular out about 10 years ago saying we encourage students to go on a gap year. Reason being that you experience the world. Know what's happening. Know what are the real challenges. Go because otherwise to get there, your whole time you're just book smart. Become world smart. Understand what's happening. Find things that you care about. So this is the top universities, so-called top universities in the world, are saying, go and have a gap year. We'll support you. You can get credit for that even if you do this. So I think getting people out into the world and experiencing the world is one of the biggest things that the university can do. And you can design that very easily. Second is to value these other experiences. So what I'm saying is like the fundamental, there's a hidden game that happens in the university, right? You can say, oh, I want you to be experiential learning, I want you to do this, the best leaders will. But the game is like the person with the highest marks gets the opportunity.
Yeah.
So okay, yeah, but I have to get those marks. So
Absolutely.
unless we balance that you start saying, okay, if you go for a gap year, we will create a system to give you value, credit for that you can see that this is helping me, even when we did this, I could have many now these industry leaders saying it's good if somebody has taken that gap year. We're not going to punish you for that. We will think it's a more positive aspect of your resume if you've done something, you've explored outside and things.
Right.
So I think the other thing is to try to correct and balance the system of how we assess things and how we value the things in the university. So if you can create value, because this is the problem. So many people understood this. They create internship in India. Every university, you have to go for a 1 month intern. But that has become a joke.
Exactly.
It has become a joke. You're like, so many people, oh, we didn't have time to do internship. We were sitting at home chilling. Can you give us a fake certificate that we did internship with you? I said, I don't do that. But, many other NGOs you can go and talk to, they're doing that.
Yeah.
So that has become that. And maybe because there's not enough time. Right? So 1 month is goes so fast. Even as an industry person, you're like, 1 month person is coming.
क्या करेगा?
क्या करेगा? मेरा time पूरा चूसेगा. And then no point in it, right?
Right.
So we have to think, if I'm sending from my university, I send minimum 4 or 5 months.
Right.
Minimum. Then that guy says, okay, 1 month I invest, I'll get at least 3-4 months. They'll be able to help me in my work. So I think that's a second. The third thing I would say is get more things in the forest, in the nature. The more things we can take students to reconnect as part of our syllabus to the forest and nature. And the last thing I would just say is, let us identify as a university what are 5 of the toughest challenges that are facing communities that you surround you. And try to see how we can invite students to start thinking about the challenge. The problem, like a lot of what I see, so I was invited to sit in on a presentation from IIT Entrepreneurship Cell. And what's the challenge? How do we keep the temperature of the pizza, maintain it till delivery time? Or that's not the real challenge of the communities, right? So you can think, what are the real challenges? They're around water, they're around waste, they're around energy, they're around health, they're around
education,
food, they're around community learning. So these are where we have to kind of guide students. These are the real challenges, not how to keep the pizza warm and things and to deliver. So
that's really funny.
Yeah.
So almost at the end.
Yes.
What did your ideal university in your imagination look like?
So I can give you some principles.
Okay.
First, it's distributed.
Okay.
So rather than seeing the funnel, like a funnel, one place, like one shopping mall or one stop, we have to start to see a web. So that's what I'm saying. Kingscollege, 100 different spaces.
Right.
Some are even in the workplace.
Right.
Some are in the forest. That starts to be the web of the university. So web thinking rather than funnel thinking.
Right.
Second is intergenerational learning. So bringing different generations together in spaces, making sure young people are connecting with older people in deep relationships, with younger people in deep relationships. That has to be part of the university model, right? Because without this intergenerationality, there's no space for wisdom.
Yep.
And we need wisdom in our society if we're to navigate all of these challenges, right? And I think the third thing is actually picking up real challenges of society, talking about them. In the conventional university, the most interesting things that are happening are not in the departments. They're in these interdisciplinary a unit maybe working on climate or on water, or
Thematic areas.
thematic, and then they bring all the disciplinary people together to work together on those centers. Those probably are the most alive places within the universities. So how do we bring more of those things into being, I think, and invite students to be part, and faculty and community members. The other thing, last thing I was saying, the university for me has to have a space for my grandmother to be accepted as she is, with her wisdom and knowledge. For the farmer has to be accepted in this, for the artisan, for the mountain. This has to be part of it. So that if we cannot, we say we respect our elders. Even, there's very interesting, I was in Vietnam. I said, why didn't Christianity take over? How come Buddhism? He said, Christianity, they didn't respect our ancestors. They didn't we have deep relationship with her. They're telling us, cut all your relationship with ancestors and only believe in Jesus. So we said, no, Buddhism is okay. They accept our ancestors. So that's why
That's very interesting.
But our ancestors are very much of who we are.
Right, absolutely.
And so our university has to accept all of these different modes of knowledge, and it has to, I said what Gandhiji said, head, heart, hands, and home. That has to be the construction of knowledge, not just the head.
Right.
So,
one single parting message to the educators.
Single parting message is get out of the classroom. The world has to be our classroom, not this box, cement box. Go out, take the children out, engage with all of this. Give that love and that passion to all the children, that there are so many beautiful challenges and we have to work together to solve those together.
Thank you, Manish. It was such an enlightening conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Sharing your experiences. I
We
really loved it.
We are hoping for Ecoversities of Nepal to be world leader. Yes.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your great leadership also.
Thank you.